Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first video edition of the Francast. Forecaster Francis Terezowitz here with your latest weather updates concerning our newest winter storm. It's going to be quite impactful for the Saturday into Sunday commutes. I expect the worst times to occur after 7 p.m. on Saturday. So your plans on Saturday, actually, let me just get into the timing here. Snow should arrive around western areas, so western Connecticut, Danbury, eastern New York State, if you're planning to go out in that direction by about 9 a.m. or earlier, as early as 4 a.m. I'm thinking. Snow will be light during the daytime hours. We'll see very minimal accumulation, so your daily drive should be fine. However, after 7 p.m., we do start to get into that heavy snow, especially I-95 and north. The snow does become heavy, it does begin to band, and there's a large potential for thunder snow. I'll get into that in more detail a little bit later in the video. Let's continue here. And our accumulations throughout the region will range anywhere from 7 to as much as 14 inches in the hardest hit zones. That's what I'm thinking at this point in time. Let me get into that a bit more with our impacts. Heavy snow will overspread the region quickly tomorrow, leading to roads that will be slightly slick, I guess, if you want to talk about like the afternoon commute, any Christmas parties you may be going to, and the like. But then that really heavy stuff, like I said, begins after 7, continues to about 4 a.m. The 2 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rates. You're really intense, what they call mesoscale banding, which just means small scale banding. And also, an interesting feature of this storm is that it's becoming so intense that it's going to wrap warm air below it and force it up into the coast. This warm air will be aloft, so it'll be above our heads. So at the surface, there'll be a shallow layer of really cold air, 32-degree air or lower, allowing for snow that does melt above our heads to refreeze into sleet pellets, or, worst case scenario, freeze on the ground and result in ice accumulations. So that being said, especially in the southern areas, we may see icing that exceeds 1/10 of an inch. That with heavy wet snow could result in isolated power outages, and as well as the next factor. As the storm intensifies, our southeast winds will increase from the northeast, so as opposed to a storm that's moving up the Ohio River Valley, it's going to be transferring its energy offshore, becoming a classic nor'easter. Those northeast winds, of course, pumping the moisture in, as well as that warmer air from the Atlantic. So I'm expecting a general 15 to 20 mile per hour wind, with potential gusts as high as 40 miles per hour during the peak of the event. Now, sort of what you all have been waiting for, the accumulations. So this is my final accumulation map. I think this area in the 17 or 7-14 inch range could really get more than what I'm showing. The model trends have been showing more moisture, more precipitation over the region, and they've also shown a more stubborn layer of cold air, especially over far northern areas. I can't talk today. But I really do think this 14-inch line begins as you head north of Interstate 84. You get into cities like Windsor, Stafford Springs, Springfield, especially Worcester, Mass. Boston Metro, you're right on the border of 7 to 14 to 4 to 10. I think you're more likely to get around a foot if I were to really guess at your final total. But the models have really been aggressive lately with the snowfall amounts. Now along the south coast, I'm not going to forget you guys, 4 to 10 inches is still a significant storm. I think you get 10-inch amounts closer towards that I-84 corridor. But the problem with this area is that you get, of course, the mixing occurring with the storm after about, say, 2 a.m. This area will also experience the most icing, and my primary concern is that it contains New York City, which will probably get closer to that 4-inch amount of snow as opposed to the 10-inch amount. But 4 inches with some ice is still very impactful, and some of the farthest areas out on the coast may actually change it over to rain for a period of time before the wraparound moisture from the departing storm leads to a bit of a cooler air mass coming in after the storm. It will get bitterly cold, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Kind of rambling on about that one. So yeah, I do believe that areas further south, like New York City, Long Island, you'll see closer to 4 inches. Areas further north, say Middletown, talking Providence, Rhode Island, yeah, more on the line of 10 inches. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few amounts that are higher. Now let me look at the current trends online. Here we have the NAM model. It stands for the North American Mesoscale model, and it's depicting an all-and-out massive snowstorm. We have these 8 to 10 inch amounts streaking up and down the I-84 corridor, and then 10 to 12 inch amounts, 12 to 14 inch amounts, and then 16 to 18 inch amounts. I'm not going to take this verbatim as of yet, but I will continue to monitor the trends because it is becoming more likely that something like this, not exactly this per se, does happen. That we do see these higher snowfall amounts. Let me get out of there for you. So I'm just going over the current observations for you guys. As you can tell, it's cold. We have plenty of Arctic air locked in place. That's not going to really be a big deal, except for areas along the coast, I-95 corridor, maybe up into like central Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeast shore of Massachusetts. But really, besides that, I think we're in for a good old-fashioned nor'easter. And then here we go with our GFS model. It has a bit less resolution for local areas. It's more of a long-range model, so it does not do as well in situations like this, and I don't usually check it. But because of the trends that it's showing, the general 2 to 4 inch amounts in the coast, 4 to 6 inches inland, and then these 8 to 10 inch lollipops in here, I do think that they are beginning to trend in a more favorable pattern for areas further south. So we'll see what happens with that trend. Also, cooler air would mean that we do see higher snowfall ratios. Typically our ratio is, for every inch of precipitation, we get 10 inches of snow. Now areas for the north will have about a 10 or a 1 to 14 ratio of snow. So every inch of precipitation, you get 14 inches of snow. Around the Hartford area northward, that's where I'm expecting that really fluffy snow to come. Now I'm going to go over to the current water vapor loop in just a second here. And you can see our ingredients coming together rather nicely here. The spin right here that you're seeing is the upper level low, results in widespread heavy rain across the southeast, sort of a relief for that area because they've been seeing record cold temperatures. But also we're beginning to see our northern stream of the jet stream beginning to really sag south and begin to sort of phase with this feature. This storm right here will actually weaken as it heads up towards the Ohio River Valley and transfer its energy offshore, probably Cape May, Delaware, and actually, updating here. So when it does that, it will become our nor'easter and intensify. By Sunday morning, I'm expecting it to be in the Gulf of Maine, throwing back any residual moisture, and we'll also get a northerly flow to develop behind the storm, bringing in a lot of cold air. Monday morning may not get above 0 for a lot of areas. So now for the current warnings and the like. If we look at the regional forecast summary here by the National Weather Service, we're seeing that a lot of the area that I had mentioned is under a winter storm watch, meaning that the potential for 6 inches or more in a 12-hour period is there. I'll bring this map a little bit further south for you all. And again, it does include most of southern Connecticut. New York City's not in that quite yet. I believe they may go with a winter weather advisory, which means that winter weather is expected, but it will not be as severe as these areas you see in blue here, north of Hartford, and a lot of the I-84 corridor. It's just for kicks. Let's look at what they're saying. So Again, your general 8 to 10 inches, sort of the amounts that I alluded to earlier. Um, Again, this is going to be a dynamic situation. You know, that any deviation in the track, although we are about 24 hours away from this thing, could change this forecast significantly. It could bring this snow amount way up north if the storm decides to head a bit further north, or if it heads south, it could really drag these heavier snowfall totals south into the major metropolitan areas. I don't really see that happening at this point, but it's always a possibility. And another feature I'm watching is the potential for what we call cold air damming. And cold air damming is essentially caused by high pressure systems that are placed to the north. Actually, this is, I'll pull up a map here for you in a second. Alright, you guys see this, this 1034 millibar high. The higher the pressure, the better the weather. Now this is a truly Arctic high. What it's going to do is it's going to move eastward, eastbound, and funnel in cooler air from eastern Canada, while our storm, you can actually begin to see it on radar over here, is to our south, and the sort of the battle zone area will be southern Connecticut, northern New Jersey, Long Island. That's where you can see your mixed precipitation. You can see your significant ice accumulations. And for this first edition of the Francast, I want to thank all of you for watching. If you are, if you're watching this from home or whatever, just remember to drop a like on Facebook. I will be making a Twitter soon, and I will improve these videos as I go along. I promise. Forecasting will get better, the voice will get better, everything will get better.